It's amazing to me that Bethesda can continually, just time and time and time again, continue to make the same exact mistakes that they have over and over and over. Amongst comments that I desperately want to believe, amongst comments from Todd Howard at the end of the Fallout Day celebration, where he mentions,
even though I am recording this, it's not live, and I'm probably like watching myself right now from my desk, and I'm reading your chat and that thing you want and this other thing you want. Hey, we read it.
Reiterates really that he's listening to feedback, that he's acknowledging comments, that he's in the chat sections and in forums, seeing what people are saying. Credit where credit's due. I really think that Todd Howard is aware of the current situation. I also believe that there's a lot going on that is more or less out of his direct control. And it's unfortunate to see, especially amongst a time where Bethesda should be really focusing on regrouping, getting fans excited, reinvigorating the fan base amongst the shadow of the new season for the Fallout TV show, or when we're just a couple years away, seemingly, with 2028 being a strong possibility for the release of The Elder Scrolls 6. You want people to be excited, you want people to be uplifted, not to continue to fuel conversations and grifters and other just derogatory comments towards someone like myself who wants to support the series, who wants to support the studio, and wants to be excited about The Elder Scrolls 6. Meanwhile, my comment section is going to be flooded with people saying, "Are you a shill? How much is Bethesda paying you?" Calling me fanboy and any other series of worse things possible. And that's a shame. That's an absolute shame, because I hope through all the criticism, through all the people who do feel disenfranchised, that I want to believe most people still feel an inkling of hope, that most people still, despite all that negativity and the pessimism that is warranted, it's not undeserved after years of getting just going back to the canvas bag shortage with the release of Fallout 4 or the Fallout 76 Collector's Edition, to the broken release of Fallout 76, then while the game was still broken, releasing a Fallout First subscription pass for the game that needed far more focus on patches, the next gen update, which was supposed to be exciting for Fallout games, breaking the experience, and now with the release of the Fallout Anniversary Edition, which was supposed to correct those issues years later, mind you, they still weren't fixed. It only caused more issues, and you could see from a couple tweets and from other people posting about the problems the game has, such as this one here from Jez Corden talking about Fallout 4 Anniversary Update, bringing all of the nostalgia, or here from Colt Eastwood, where he showcases the broken, how Diamond City is completely broken, things aren't loading properly, texture issues, so on and so forth with the game amongst this new update. But instead, you can get charged $20, $40, or $60 to have the luxury, the privilege of upgrading to this brand new edition of the game. Meanwhile, and even Mr. Matty Plays commented how loading times are still a minute or plus longer going between zones, which just fuels conversations and complaints about the creation engine. Even as myself, someone who thinks there's a lot of good things about the creation engine, but they often just get overshadowed by a lot of the criticism that it faces. But if, for example, they released everything they did, maybe a little bit more, and it was $10 instead of the $20 price point, but what exactly are you getting for $20? That's part of the problem, because quite frankly, I mean, I didn't think the Anniversary Edition upgrade for Skyrim, which was also $20 by the way, I didn't think that was worth it, because the stuff that came out in Creation Club was never that impressive or worth your time or your money, in my opinion. I thought all of it was completely overpriced. I made a whole video in the past discussing how they released this upgrade for $20, but I think the price of all those creations amounted to somewhere over like $100 or even $200. So Bethesda knew that the value wasn't there if they were willing to charge only $20 to get all of it in a bundle. But I digress. With this new edition, there are some things that previously weren't available, such as a brand new weapon, 2 brand new guns, a new house that you can go in. There is a new quest line that gets introduced, and as well as some power armor paint jobs. But lumped into the existing Creation Club content, just to go through a couple of these: singular weapon, armor paint reskins, dog, If we keep going, here's another dog, another dog, another dog, another dog. All of these, I think, serve as reskins for dog meat, by the way. So it's not as though you're finding them out in the world and they'll have, different personalities or anything of that nature. Here's a series of Pip-Boy reskins that you can get. Another dog. Power Armor reskins. Another dog. Another dog. I think there's at least 2 more. Yeah, here's a Labrador Retriever. Another one yet again. And here's some paint jobs that you can get thrown on to something, right? So everything that you're actually getting for $20, reskins, singular weapons, and even the quest lines that come with some of these items being follow the notes, read the terminals, kill this guy. That's what you're paying for. And if you love Fallout 4 so much that that's of value to you, then more power to you. Go ahead and enjoy it. But for a lot of folks, it's simply not there, especially when you have to make the compromise of your game crashing consistently because of the update or losing your existing mod order because of these updates. Now, even Skyrim Anniversary Edition, it did release for $20. However, it does frequently, you could see here, does frequently go on sale for 50% off for just $10. So if you have any temptation to buy the Fallout Anniversary Edition upgrade, just wait. It will go on sale for $10. However, Bethesda had, even with Skyrim Anniversary Edition, if you wanted to get the base game plus all the DLC plus the new creations added, they released that at $50, and that frequently goes down to $17. So even now, Bethesda decided we're going to charge $10 more than we did for the previous Anniversary Edition. And it's worth mentioning that if you look at the reviews for the upgrade, it's at a 48% on Steam, about 50 positive, 50 negative, because it's the exact same things that we're seeing for Anniversary Edition of Skyrim, once again for the Anniversary Edition of Fallout. Breaking your mod order, your mod load order, the price of it all, the creations not being high value, the exact same complaints. And this is all on the heels of what I honestly thought was a pretty failed Fallout Day celebration, which is supposed to get fans excited for the franchise, excited for everything to come with Fallout, but even there, well, the fan side of things, I talked about this in the past, the fan side of things I thought was done well, but anything that came from Bethesda seemed like monetization opportunity, that Bethesda is looking at all of the existing Fallout fan base when it's at the peak level of its popularity and just seeing dollar symbols and wallet. You're just a wallet to them, and it's insulting. And this is coming from somebody who wants to see the absolute best that I can, that I really want to be excited for the Elder Scrolls 6, and even I get a little bit nervous about what that might pertain when I see things like this. And in between, there are some small glimmers of something good, right? Because I think there is good intention and just massively poor execution. You see something like the Elder Scrolls Oblivion remaster, which was incredibly exciting to see. And it's honestly a great way to experience Oblivion if you've never played that game before, as it's one of my favorite Elder Scrolls games. And one of the worst parts is it's more and more, you can't really say that it's a lack of awareness of the situation. You almost wish you could in some ways, but it just seems more and more like a lack of ability to correct from past mistakes. That Bethesda's just that Looney Tunes character stepping on rake after rake after rake. And amongst all the good things that they do, where they did donate thousands of dollars, I think it was like $25,000 that they donated to St. Jude during the Fallout Day celebration, that they specifically hosted a fundraiser to raise money for Make-A-Wish Foundation, which allowed the opportunity to put characters, you make a character that gets put into the Elder Scrolls 6, which is pretty cool, and it's for a great cause. But all that stuff gets buried beneath the litany of news of what most gamers really care about, which is the games themselves. And when that's not delivering, you're going to see this type of backlash. So what does all of this mean for the Elder Scrolls 6? Because honestly, that's where I am at this point. I think that in some ways, the success of the Fallout TV show was one of the worst things that could have happened to the franchise, in my honest opinion. And I feel as though I could make a whole video on that, but just the mass popularity, it certainly doesn't help when you have Microsoft now holding the reins of all of this when they're asking and making unrealistic expectations of 30% profit margins on their games, which doesn't normally happen for most games. I've talked about that in the past. So I'm looking ahead, I'm looking at Elder Scrolls 6, and as an Elder Scrolls 6 fan, and I think many of you that tune into the channel, that's probably your favorite franchise out of the Bethesda itinerary, where does that leave us? And to be completely honest, I'm still about in the same boat. I think for all of the criticism that Starfield got, a lot of that came from the nature of the game they were trying to make, which was vastly different from anything they've done before. And I've spent a lot of time looking through, for example, the Elder Scrolls subreddit and seeing what people are saying there. And I'm happy to see a lot of folks do agree with the mentality of going back to a single unified landmass is honestly going to make a massive difference in and of itself for many of the complaints that Starfield suffered from. As far as the monetization side, I do think that this transition from, for example, Creation Club to Creations has been absolutely toxic, but we're no longer going to see that because now the new road forward for Bethesda and their post-launch monetization of the game is in the form of just Creations, which is where we've gotten some really good things like King Gath Creations, who did the Bard's College or the Watchtower for Starfield, which was really good. But that paves the way for Creations more like that, and we won't have to deal with Creation Club and ideally Anniversary Edition updates. They'll be able to say, hey, no, it's done. The game released as is. It might get a game of, or will likely get some form of Game of the Year edition, and then it'll be moving on from there, right? So those two things alone, hopefully, fingers crossed, takes out the need for a lot of the issues that Fallout 4 is now experiencing with its updates, or Skyrim experienced when its Anniversary Edition update, or some of the problems in terms of the pure game design that Starfield had experienced. And when it comes to the actual release and polish of the game, I think it will get arguably more support than Starfield to make sure that it comes out the gate clean, because you can look at the popularity of Elder Scrolls in the amount of coverage that it gets. When Todd Howard comes out and does an interview, which was the recent one with GQ, which was supposed to be about Fallout, by the way, that was supposed to be the main takeaway and why the interview was taking place, but the majority of conversations that dominated from that interview were the small little tidbits about Elder Scrolls 6. And when news outlets talk about it, and they all did, they do so because they know the popularity, they know it'll get clicks, it'll get attention because people are hungry for more information, which just reinforces the popularity of the franchise. And even though it has been now a very long time since we've heard anything from Elder Scrolls and gotten a new Elder Scrolls game, there's a lot of ambition going into it. The time away that worked on Starfield and Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 in between Elder Scrolls games hopefully added more fuel. We have interviews from past developers where they mentioned that folks at Bethesda were chomping at the bit to get back to working on Elder Scrolls because they missed that world so dearly.
Really wanting to get onto Elder, like a lot of the artists were like chomping at the bit to get back to Elder Scrolls, and I was just like the one guy who was just like, no, give me more Fallout stuff to do.
So underneath, it does seem as though you have just a recipe for a very successful upcoming launch. Whether or not that's the end result and what we actually get remains to be seen. I know a lot of people are not going to be as optimistic as I am that it will sort of just all come together, but I hope that some of you may at least consider some of my words before you comment and just say that Bethesda's trash and everything's terrible and they all suck and they'll never release a good game again. So that's all for me. I just want to give my thoughts on that. Hope you enjoyed. I'll be covering Elder Scrolls 6 going forward. Also check out some videos if you're into other RPGs such as Mass Effect, Exodus. I'll be talking about some Witcher 4 stuff if anything is interesting comes up there. So please do consider sticking around. Thank you. And as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.